Okay, Chester. Okay, so we're going to sit for a second. We'll do an Om first and then sit for a few minutes and get started. Okay, does anybody have any questions or any comments or from their work this week or last week or this week? Yeah. Hi, Audrey. Dana, did you raise your hand or not? No.
I did not raise my hand, no questions, no.
All right, no questions. Wow, an enviable situation. So today we're going to look at doing a reading. And we're going to look at two readings that I did. And next week, I don't think we'll have time for today, but one of the things I want to do, and a functionality that I haven't really explored, is apparently with the Zoom you can break into groups. So breaking into groups of two, and each of you trying to read for each other, or just, and not a full-on reading, but even just like pick a few cards and talk about what that means. That's a really good thing to just start getting used to doing. We're not going to do that today because I haven't learned how it is that you do the breakout into groups on Zoom. But today what we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple of readings that I did. One of them was one that I did earlier. Both of them I did over the weekend. One of them was a reading about the mood in the United States for this week. And the other one was just a reading that I did for this group, just like something to talk about with this group for whatever reason. I didn't have any clear question in mind. So let's look at first the reading for the United States. I'm going to do screen sharing. So I did the reading with my deck of cards, so you guys can all see it, right? Could you see it, the reading?
Yes.
Okay. And can you see my cursor moving about it also?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can.
So this is the deck of cards that I use. So I realized that this is my deck, one of the ones that I designed. I like using I like using decks of cards with just like the most basic images possible for the minor arcana cards 1 through 10, because I just wanted to show you this. I realized later that this is going to be harder for you guys to read if you're just starting, but it gives you a nice overview. You can see what the major cards are. You can see how many major cards are. You can see if there's a lot of people that show up. It's immediately obvious if there's a preponderance of something, whether it's a preponderance of people or a preponderance of swords or of even of sevens, that kind of thing. So just anybody just looking at this, and I did this morning, I put out the cards using my other deck, which has people on every card, people doing something on almost every card. Just looking at it, this is about the mood in the United States. Why don't each of you, if each of you can or is comfortable doing it, why don't you say something about what you notice about the reading? So I'm going to go to Dana. Do you want to start?
Well, I automatically look to the top one, the tower reversed, I guess, because I guess that's what I do. And
you want to go to the end?
Yeah. Readings, right? Or the future, and that's the tower reversed.
Right.
So I guess I imagine that that's a good thing.
Because it's not upright.
Because I don't know exactly what it means, but I know the tower, destruction and all that. Upright Yes. So I think and I know I'm probably wrong. I think the opposite of that.
No, it's a little bit of both. The fact that the tower's there shows the forces of destruction or of disruption. The
Mhm.
tower is but there's the tower and death. Those are two of the heavy hitters right there.
Right.
in
Right.
reading. The tower is more the breakdown of the structures that we have set up to support us in life. The breakdown but the idea is that the structures are no longer supporting, so they're being broken. But you're right, it's reversed. So it's sort of like it could be like the aftershocks of an earthquake, or it could be just kind of rumblings, but it's not really the full-on earthquake.
Okay.
Right? So that's the first thing, that's what you notice, right? And
Right.
your first sense of that is that that's a good thing.
That
right?
it's better. Yeah, I always think of the tower as the worst card. I guess I don't know why. So I thought, oh, well, that's not
Yeah.
worst card. And then and the other thing I saw are strife, right? Swords.
Yes.
So
right.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot of swords, right? Okay. So the next one would be, is it Sharon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I noticed the swords right away. Right away.
And what comes up for you with all those swords? What do you think?
Well, not studying the cards yet.
Right. This is nobody's studying the cards. This is just.
No, I mean like I know nothing. This is
right.
this
That's
a
fine.
newbie. I think a sword as defense.
Right. So it's kind of an aggressive card, right?
It's an aggressive card, a way to defend yourself.
Right. And it suggests potentially violence or trouble that you have to defend yourself against.
Yes.
All right, Audrey. So again, it doesn't matter if you know anything, just what strikes you about this? What do you think, what sense do you have from these cards about the mood of the country this week, if this reading is? Oh, Audrey, you're muted. You have to unmute yourself. I unmuted. Oops. Unmute. Whoops. You have to unmute yourself. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. No, I was looking, there was a lot of swords, but swords remind me of difficult times, rough patches, yeah, just, and then the skeleton too. Like I said, I don't know much about these, but with all the swords, I thought definitely defense, difficult times, struggles.
Right. Right.
Yeah. But I don't, and I have a question. You said tower. Which one was the tower card? I'm sorry.
The tower is this card at the top, the very last card.
This one over there. Okay. Oh, that's the tower over there. Got it. Okay. Sorry. I didn't.
Okay, Emily, what do you have anything else that you want to point out about the reading or that comes up for you?
Oh.
You said me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The first thing I saw was the death card as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess last time I had this card, I think it can also mean the end of something. So I guess it could be positive, but it could also be negative. So I don't necessarily understand the rest of the card and the layout, and how some are, or like at least one is horizontal. So
right. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you now about the positions of the cards and the meanings of the placement. Okay. This is the basic reading. It's called a Celtic cross. And the first card is the what they call the querent, the person asking the question, or in this case, I was asking about the mood in the United States. So this is that's United States is the querent. That's like the people. Then this card, the card crossing, is something that's crossing you, something that has to be dealt with one way or the other, that there's no getting around, that has to be dealt with. This is what is being asked about, kind of the question. This is what's at the basis of the question, at the root of the question. This is what's behind the question, although some people put this card over here, but this is how I learned it. This is behind, and this is in the near-term future, what's just ahead. Everybody has the order the same, but sometimes the fifth card is placed over here, and I place it there. Fifth. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the near-term future. then going up the side, this is sort of like the internal experience of that, of the querent. This is their internal experience. This is something in the environment, number 8. This is hopes or fears, number 9. And then this is the final outcome. Of course, there's really no such thing as a final outcome. One of the things that I often find is that aside from the fact that you can sort of pick other cards for, like, you know, beyond this, what happens, or taking this into account, if I act in the correct way, what happens, there's a way in which, left to itself, and this you won't find in any books, that the placement of the cards and the meaning of the position, the Celtic cross is a really basic reading. You can find that anywhere. You can look that up online. But I have often found that although this is the so-called final outcome, if you don't adjust your behavior or change your behavior, or if all things left, usually your hopes and fears then determine what happens next. So then you can kind of go up to the top and you can kind of come back down in terms of like how this is going to progress. This is not like hard and fast, but I've certainly found over, I don't even know how many years of reading the cards, that often that there's a certain kind of, this is the end, but then it can kind of go towards this, towards the hopes or fears. And then because our hopes and fears are determined by what we pick up in the environment around you, it can kind of go backwards towards this. This can kind of tell you, like, farther down the line where things are going, again, without changing, if you continue going as you are, for better or for worse. So I'm going to talk some about what this means, like looking at, yeah? Does somebody have a question? No. Okay, actually it's easier for me to read those cards, but first I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to change what I'm going to show you what the reading looks like. So let's see. Can you see this now? Could you see this one before or not?
No.
Okay.
No.
I think I can share them both on the desktop, but I don't know how. So this is the same reading with my other deck of cards. One of the things I'm going to do today is also show you we're going to look at the minor arcana cards. I'm going to show you different versions of the minor arcana cards for a number of these cards, because I think that can help you get a broader sense of what they mean. And I'm also going to talk to you about something that another technique that I do that is a really good thing to get used to doing, and is also a good way to learn the cards. So just looking again, these are the exact same cards, but this time there are pictures on all the cards. So just, you don't have to say something again about specifically what the reading is, but just how is this, looking at this, is this easier for you to have more of a sense of what it means? I just want to know. No. And so Sharon says no. Dana says no. Audrey? So.
No, not really. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not that
I
familiar.
think yes. Oh,
What?
sorry.
It's okay. Say something. Say.
I said yes. I thought I find this much easier to read.
Oh, is that Heidi? No.
It's Sheila. Sorry, I came
Sheila,
a little late.
I can't see your picture. So.
Oh, you can't. Oh, I was wondering why you didn't say hi to me. I was like, I hope she's not mad at me.
Okay. Oh, now I can see. Oh, there's more people I didn't see. I'm sorry. I should have asked the rest of you to say your bit too. I'm sorry. I didn't see how many people were in.
You weren't being passive aggressive.
Well, that explains the reading I did for the group. Because I'm looking at the screen, I don't have everybody's picture up there. I'm sorry. So now we'll go. So just everybody can chime in. Sheila, you said you find it easier or you don't find it?
I find this much easier to read than the Rider-Waite deck that I'm using.
Oh, you find this one easier?
I find this one, the one you have.
Right. Do you find it easier to read than, this is very much based on the Rider-Waite, this deck of mine. Do all of you in the class generally find it easier to read the to have a sense of the meaning, looking at these cards versus looking at the first cards that we looked, the cards without pictures. Yes.
I felt like the one without the picture was easier because of the number of cards that we have right now.
Right.
So it was easier to look at, to find patterns with, for example, like the number of swords that were
Right.
showing and so on.
Right.
But when I'm at home and I just pull one card, I do like the picture because I look at the different symbols and elements of the picture, and I think that's what really helps me
I would say,
understand.
right. I would say that correctly summarizes why the advantages of both. When you're reading on your own, you will learn the meanings of the cards better with cards with pictures. Also, this card has this deck in particular, you can see that there's 3 7s, whereas with the other one that wasn't, you could, if you looked, you would see that there were 3 7s, but here it's like much more obvious. So 3 7s also tells you something. So does anybody who I passed over before, any of Sheila, Heidi, and let's see, I don't see the names for everybody else. You have to say unmute. Let's see, I'll unmute you. Okay.
It's Amanda's here.
Amanda, oh, hi, right.
Yeah, hi.
You guys are in some shadows. And then, all right, does anybody else want to say something about what they see about the cards, about the reading, about what they think of the 3 7s? Does anybody have anything to say about that?
To me, that's divinity.
That is so 7 is considered a mystical number.
Mm-hmm.
It generally also represents something hidden. So I would say that that's sort of interesting in terms of the fact that people are somewhat hidden these days. Everyone has to be, everyone is in isolation. The kind of, so for example, in ancient Greek, like sort of metaphysical and sometimes philosophical societies, you had to have something in your name that was numerologically came to a 7 in order to be allowed to join, because it was thought that unless you had that sort of inherent ability to understand that which is hidden, it was pointless to have you in the group. So,
wow, how interesting.
So that's the 7s. So I'm going to quickly, I'll go over the meaning of it, and I'm going to go over it using the, let's see if I can I do this? I can. So now you can see both,
Ooh.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so the first card, the 7 of Wands, shows somebody, somebody fighting for themselves. Somebody in here. Let's see. I'm going to. So can you see this now? Did you see the new group? So
Yeah.
here, 6 different versions of the 7 of Wands. So you can get a sense of the variety of things that it can mean from seeing this, but it shows perhaps somebody protecting themselves with this one. This could be somebody protecting themselves, but it could also be somebody who's kind of bringing these other forces to fight with them, to fight others. But it's the idea, there's something that's hidden. Wands are fire, so it's like an internal fire that is not easily seen by others, that you can call upon in order to protect or to lead or to do what is right. So that's why Crowley calls it valor. And this is Tarot of the Spirit, where they call it courage. Here I included the, what's it called, the wild unknown, because I know that a couple of you have it. But so these 2 give it names based on the Kabbalistic meaning of it. And so here, but you can see that same idea. They don't show the fire hidden, but they show, you know, the fire burning that, again, that with the other sticks beside it. And then this one is called the Alchemical Tarot. This is the one that seems a little bit of an outlier in terms of its meaning. It doesn't seem to have quite the same, because it shows like these 2 fighting animals in front of a burning forest. I just included it. We'll talk more about it later, but I'm just trying to give you a sense of what cards can look like. So here's, again, that's this card, the first card. That's where the United States, that's where people in the United States generally are. They're holding on. They're like, they got that internal strength. They're going to keep going. They're like, it's, yeah, you know, we're doing the right thing, and we're going to stick to it. So it's crossed by another 7, another hidden thing. So that's the 7 of Swords. So the 7 of Swords is reversed there. So, no, that's not what I wanted.
So how do you know it's reversed here? Because it's horizontal. So how can you?
So I know that it's reversed because I picked it.
Okay.
And I also know that it's reversed because I've been doing this for a while. I would place it in if I have the end that I picked. If it was upright, this where it says Swords would be at that end. But I know when I picked it that it was reversed. But you have to have your own. I picked it, looked at it, set it down. So here's some different versions of the 7 of Swords. So the 7 of Swords is like a hidden agenda. Again, we're talking about things that are hidden. The swords are the swords are the element of air. So it's thought or ideas or communication, or and thought, ideas, communication. You know, it's the whole nothing is either good nor bad, but thinking makes it so. The ability of the mind to create strife. So the seven of Swords upright usually shows something a little bit sneaky, or Crowley calls it futility. This person calls it many tongues, but it's generally the idea of, again, this is a little bit different. There's a mess of swords, but the fox being shown, the fox is sort of known to be a trickster. The idea of something that is not quite above board, a thought, or, you know, some sort of hidden agenda. So with it reversed, it's more like not trying to be sneaky or not, but there's a bit of the desire to sneak around coming into the picture. So if this is everybody being like, yes, I'm doing the right thing, this is like, oh, but I really don't want to. Really, can I not like do this or do that, or a little bit of that, but they're not doing it yet. But they're starting to be that feeling. Does that make sense? Okay.
And
So,
Melissa, sorry for interrupting again. So you were saying like the first card that you uncover is really has to do with the subject of your question that you ask when you do the reading. And the second card, so this card we just did, is it what does it mean in the grander scheme of the reading?
So this is the subject. This is the whatever you're reading. This characterizes them. This is what crosses them, what they have to deal with one way or the other. This is not a terrible thing to deal with, because with the 7, if it was upright, they could be dealing with like more of that sort of desire to sneak around, or it could also be dealing with somebody in their environment who's not entirely honest, that kind of thing. But this way, it's not this 7 of Swords reversed is not so severe, but this is something that has to be dealt with. So for the whole thing to play out, there's no way around this card. That's what it says.
Got it. Thank you.
What's being asked about?
I have a question about what's being asked about. And when I've been doing readings as you suggested, I get confused about what to tell them about that first card. I'm like, this is the path or where we are.
Which one? This card, the one that's the Prince of Swords reversed, or this card, the 7?
The 7 and the one on top and the Prince reversed. I sort of I'm a little muddled about the left side of the reading.
So I would try to think of it in a general sense, first of all. So first of all, what's more important than any one position is the overall appearance. That's always true. So here there's a bit of a balanced overall appearance because there's 3 major, I mean, it's not all major cards or all minor cards. There's that going for it. It's a little bit of a not very pleasant overall appearance. but in terms of thinking of this group versus this group, this is kind of like the whole situation around, let's say this was a person, this is the person, this is what they have to deal with. This is like the cloud around them, you know, this is like what they're thinking about, why they're thinking about it, what's happened in the past around that, and what's about to happen. This is like the whole kind of aura around them. And then this is how it's going to continue. This is more like how it's going to unfold.
Okay.
Although that's not exactly what these mean. This is also the internal experience of the person. But the overall appearance here is like not that happy. If you had to say, what's the mood in the United States this week? Would you say happy? You would not say happy.
No.
It doesn't. So this is the overall mood. This isn't necessarily about your mood or anything like that. This overall suggests a situation where they're still going through something somewhat traumatic. They wish there was something they could do about it, but there isn't really. They're trying to do the right thing. They're getting a little tired of being at home, but there's no immediate change in sight. It's not over yet. It's not over yet. They're still dealing with everything, and it's hard. There is, from the outside, there is conflicting and weird and not very focused guidance or help or information. And there's people are not, this one usually shows sorrow. People are not, this is not happy. This is dealing with it and dealing with it relatively well. And here the seven of Pentacles, what they're afraid of, this is, I can show you some of the cards for that too. This is like the thing that's hidden there is something material. So that's often like an incomplete harvest or not as much of a harvest, or let's see, I'll show you the 7 coins. There's some of the 7 coins. So Crowley calls it failure. This person calls it the garden. But if it's a garden, see, this person's not that happy. And this person's just beginning to plant the seedlings. So, and then here it's more like a really bad harvest.
That card came up in a reading I did for my friends today.
Which one? The 7 of...
The 7 of Pentacles.
Yeah, the 7 of Pentacles or coins. It's kind of like, one of my friends used to call it the flat tire card, but it's a little bit more, so whether or not you really consider it failure, or you consider it like a sort of an insufficient or disappointing harvest, or that the harvest has not yet come, that there's more time, it's the general idea is that the result that you would like, the material result, the thing that you would like to see is hidden.
Wonderful. That's such a better explanation than what the writer wait. I have another follow-up question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You had said not about the 7, but you had said about looking at the reading as a whole, the major arcana versus minor arcana.
Mm-hmm.
I've been getting a bunch of minor arcana in the readings I'm doing for people. And they seem kind of like not very good readings. Is that a telltale sign?
Having a bunch of minor arcana, if you have nothing but minor arcana in a reading, it shows that it is more of a focus on the events. You don't really want to have a reading that only has minor arcana, because it sort of shows that you're not seeing the big picture.
Oh, thank you.
And ideally, you would want to have a balance. If you have a lot of major arcana and no minor arcana, well, I think I mentioned this before in another class, that it either means you're a woman going through menopause, or and for some reason, women going through menopause, if anytime you're going through something that's an intense internal experience that brings up powerful feelings about the nature of life, you will have major arcana cards show up. If you are going through something like that and you have only minor arcana cards show up, for whatever reason, you're not like in a place where you can deal with the internal experience. But for you to be getting a lot of readings with people where it seems like it's kind of bad and it's all minor cards, it means they probably need to take a break, and they should probably not, maybe they shouldn't be asking questions until they kind of center themselves, think a little bit. They're like, in a kind way, you wouldn't do this, you wouldn't say that in a judgmental way, but it might be necessary to draw in a little bit more, and it's very much focused on what's going to happen. What's going to happen? What do I do next? And none of us are that happy if we're just focused on what's going to happen. What do I do next? You want to have some sense of why it's all happening. What's the meaning of it?
That was the question. Those were the questions for both of those readings. What's going to happen next?
Oh yeah, well, they probably should not be focusing on what's going to happen next quite so much.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, I think I'm going to go to the reading that I did, for the group, and we'll take a look at that for the class. First I did it. Okay, so can you all see both groups of cards?
Yes.
Okay. So this looks a little bit happier than the reading for the United States, right? Although we do have, again, the Seven of Wands reversed, the Seven of Swords reversed there.
Melissa, can I just ask, who was this reading for and what was the question asked?
So the question asked, I didn't ask a very specific question. I just said, let me just do a reading for the class. This is something, I don't know why. I don't know whether it's for one particular person in the class or if it's but this is just a reading that somehow will be meaningful to do in the class. So let's assume that it's for somebody in the class. We don't really know which person, or maybe it's overall. I would say that this could be about everyone, which it could be. The one reason why I would tend to say that it shows, it's a little bit personalized by having the Two of Cups there. The Two of Cups shows the experience of a one-on-one connection with someone. So let's just see, does anybody have any comments? I want to show you a technique also that is a useful technique to do. So let's just have three people, whichever. Does anybody have anything that comes to mind about this reading? What shows up? What do you, anything that springs up, whichever version?
It seems very powerful. More powerful than a lot, or empowered. I don't know.
It is more empowered. It ends in a positive major arcana card. Both readings had a certain degree of balance. They both have 3 major arcana cards. This one doesn't have any coins in it. It has swords, and it has wands, and it has cups. It also seems to speak about a personal relationship because it has the Two of Cups right here, and it ends with Temperance right there. So Temperance is one of the 3 major arcana cards that I mentioned that have to do with relationships. So I'm going to go over sort of a way of looking what this would seem to be. This reading would seem to be about, it shows somebody, first of all, who's going through a bit of a difficult time. So there's the 10, but it's not as bad as it could be. So the 10 of Wands upright usually shows a burden. Let's see, so I'll show you. So here's some different versions of the 10 of Wands. Here they show it as the Page, oppression. There's generally the sense of this is, again, an outlier. You're always going to find outliers, but the Wands, like I said, they the wands are energy, and as it gets towards the end, like it's more difficult. The wands are definitely like the energy is better at the beginning. As it gets towards the end, it's harder. It becomes more burdensome. It doesn't like being in more material. But reversed, so upright it shows, but it can also show like that last bit that you have to carry something before you can put it down. Reversed, it can either mean it's not so bad, it's not so heavy a burden. It can also mean that it is a burden that you can't, like, maybe it's not so heavy a burden, but it's also maybe not something you can put down anytime soon. So you're still kind of dragging the burden. You're still sort of carrying it. So the thing that I would say, so again, if one just wanted to jump overall to say something about the reading, this card was reversed also, the Hierophant. And the Hierophant is about social structure. So it can be about jobs, about right work. It can also be about a relationship that's like a marriage, or that's, you know, a committed relationship. This would seem to be about a relationship that is, so either the idea here is of it being kind of difficult, but no immediate end in sight, of the issue of work, of either not working or not having like the right kind of relationship to society, which all of us have a weird relationship to society now, because all of us are, you know, isolated. This also could be about a relationship that's not a marriage or not a relationship. This shows somebody that has, but it's a good relationship. What it says is, enjoy your time with another person, with this person. It can feel really good to be with someone right now. And even though that feels like that's almost like a logical thing that you're just thinking, it still makes you feel good. And there's no like sort of hidden agenda around it. And there's a really good communication between you and this other person. Like the Temperance is the card about relationships that's not about passion. And it's not about it's about the communication aspect, about the friendship aspect. The relationship, you know, starts with the lovers, but without temperance, without the ability to connect in the middle, it's not going to go any farther. So it says there's a certain degree, there's clearly some anxiety and some stress that's being, and some fear that the person that say this is about a particular person is undergoing. But there's the sense that this relationship is a calming influence, even if it's not, you know, I mean, even if there's something about the whole structure of it that is, I mean, this could be, for example, about a relationship. The Hierophant crossing can be either about the fact of like work, or not knowing what your work is, or not really knowing like how you're going to go forward with society. But it can also be about the relationship itself being, you know, really good, but not really knowing like sort of what's happening with it next. So again, that part of it isn't going to be true for all of you. Some of you are married, some of you are not at all. But this was a reading that this is just what came up. So there's clearly.
I'm so glad.
Why?
It's perfect for me.
Well, there you go, Heidi. Now we know who it's for.
No, I'm Sheila.
Oh, Sheila, that's right. Sorry.
You can call me Heidi in class.
I was looking at Heidi. I was looking at Heidi drinking her coffee or whatever. All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments or anything that comes up, or any questions they want to ask me about these cards, this reading?
I have a question.
Go ahead. This one time it is Heidi.
Yeah. I was reading in a book, and it said that it was talking about signifier cards.
Mm-hmm.
And it was saying one way to find them or to pick them is to like by your birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And so that Temperance is like mine by my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
So I wondered if that had any kind of if that means anything, if like it's your supposed card that comes up like that. And also I wanted to say that I yesterday was asking, can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might duck out. My thing says my internet connection is bad, so it might pop away. But anyways, yesterday I asked about a particularly difficult, a relationship that I ended, a friendship that I ended a long time ago, and I'm still dealing with, like, emotionally. And this 10 of Wands came up yesterday, but upside down. First it was this, I think, the 7 of Wands, but they're both upside down. But anyways, that, because you said the Cups is like a relationship, and then that same card came up, and then it had that Temperance. So I don't know.
Yeah, I would say that it would seem that this reading would have some bearing for you as well. That especially, I would say that under the circumstance of doing a reading like sort of for the class, and the card that is your signifier card coming up, that yeah, that would say you should pay some special attention to it. And that this reading, and the fact that other cards that came up, like the 10 of Wands reversed coming up, it does suggest that this is also speaking about that relationship. This would tend to say that there is, this would tend to say that for any close personal relationship with someone else, it can be lover, partner, friend, somebody that you love, a particular person that you love. It's not so likely to be a child, because this is like an equal relationship. But it suggests something difficult that is not easily resolved, and that doesn't fit. Like, so for example, with a friendship, like there's something about it that's sort of wrong in terms of like your idea of what a friend should be. Or there's something about it that doesn't, or that it can just be that the two of you aren't like that close to each other anymore in terms of the circles that you move in terms of like how you've decided to interact in life, with life. But there's still something meaningful and good there. There's also clearly something that still needs to be resolved, because there's fear, and there's something that is felt to be missing, and there's also like arguments. There's also fighting. People are feeling like they need to defend some aspect of themselves, and that it would suggest that the other person is more anxious than you are about it, and that is probably having an impact on what's happening in the relationship. Although that can, of course, create anxiety for you as well. There's a sense here that you're going to get to a better place with it, just within you yourself, and that, and really too, because all of us in the class are women, and this woman shows up, it also suggests like you don't need to take it personally how they're feeling, and you don't need to resolve it in terms of, you don't necessarily need, you're not going to be able to resolve it in a traditional sort of way. You're just going to have to understand that, and it would also suggest that there's a middle ground that can be found here. And it suggests a bigger need for communication that may not be easy to start to do right away. This card I didn't speak about at all, the 9 of Wands. Now the 9 of Wands is one of the hardest cards to read, because it's like means so many different, so like these, it means so many different things. Here, it can show a person defending, wanting to protect themselves, but it can also show a person like exploring, perhaps protecting themselves, able to protect themselves, but also looking at what else is around. And here, it's strength, which could involve both of these. Eye of Fire, who knows what that actually means, but, and then here too, this is like sort of a stairway up to the moon. And again, what is that about? A stairway up to the moon is not the sun, and it doesn't look like an easy stair either. And here, this is like a very alchemical kind of image of the, usually it's supposed to be a cell of some sort of animal alive in the flame. So I usually find the 9 of Wands is a little bit of a combination of protecting oneself, having the strength to protect oneself, and also the strength to explore other alternatives. sometimes the Nine of Wands comes up when you're looking for a home because, you know, you have to do an awful lot of that, you know, an awful lot of like going out and seeing what else is there.
Melissa, I have a question. And I think I've watched all of your YouTube videos on the tarot. Do you go over each minor arcana card?
I started doing that, but I haven't done every minor arcana card.
Okay, I'm gonna write down what you just said because it was really good. I thought it was on YouTube.
I don't think I talked about the nines yet, and I think I went through each of the suits, so I may have said something about the Nine of Wands, but I did not but I didn't talk specific. I'm pretty sure I haven't done one about the Nine of Wands or about the nines. Okay, so now I want to show you. So this is one thing that I would suggest. Does anybody else have any questions or comments about the readings? And was that helpful for you to see the readings and to see the different versions of the cards?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you remind me what you said, where the placement of that Nine of Wands is? What that means, that placement?
That placement is like the internal experience. It's kind of this. So here we have the Ten of Wands reversed and the Nine of Wands. This is the person where they sort of are, but this is what's happening inside. This is like their internal experience.
Thank you.
I have a question also.
Yeah.
About if that Temperance was reversed, how would you interpret that?
That would make a big difference. That would suggest a relationship that is sort of, so with the Devil there, that could show a relationship that's a passionate relationship, that's not balanced, but it isn't. But already then the relationship, that would be, then with also Temperance reversed, the Devil, and the Hierophant reversed, that would not really speak that well for the relationship. It would not be like a very, like sort of, you know, a relationship that falls under a clear sort of social structure. It wouldn't be balanced. There wouldn't be communication. There wouldn't be an ability to find a middle ground. It would not suggest kind of the appropriate compromise that's needed in a relationship. And it would suggest the relationship that gives way to whatever, passion or fear or desire or the intense self-protective feelings of the moment.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay. So one thing that I often do this before any reading for a client, but one thing that I would suggest that you guys try doing a lot of, especially after you do a reading, is, as you can see from the title here, putting cards in order. So what I do is I put the cards in order. And I do this by, first of all, going through the deck as it is, as I had it, and there's a pile for the wands, a pile for the cups, a pile for the swords, and a pile for the coins or pentacles, and then a pile for the major arcana. And every time I have, so it depends how often this happens, but I certainly look at the first time and the last time that all the cards, there's one of each. So you can see I had a number of major arcana cards and wands before I actually ended up then getting one of a coin, one of a sword, and one of the Six of Cups. So this too then this also continues to tell you something about the situation. I actually love doing this. And this is, sometimes other things come up. Like once I did a reading for a client, and as I was putting the cards in order after the reading, like the very last grouping was so intense. I thought, oh, you know, she's not going to be able to do what we were saying she really needed to do, and something bad is going to happen. And then it did. But I mean, it tells you more about the situation. So here again, the Six of Cups has to do with relationships. It shows a lot of confusion. It's kind of like, just work on it. I mean, I'm not going to go over what each of it means, because this is a good way for you to start to get familiar with the cards. Not because you'll force yourself to, you can see it 8 times there was a new one of each one. This was the next grouping of one of each of them. And then, you know, you can see the three, then the last grouping, actually the seventh and the eighth were very similar. There was the seventh with the Hierophant again. So this was for that same reading. So at this point, some of the cards from the reading are coming up. And here's the very last grouping.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Nice question. So your after a reading, you don't put them back in order, is what you're saying. So you only put them back in order before you're going to begin a new reading, right?
No, I usually put them back in order at the end of a reading. So you don't need to do this every time. There's no I mean, especially if you're just reading for yourself, but you can. The thing that makes it good is not just that you get used to seeing them in a group divided, but that you also start to, then you'll go through each of these piles and put them in order. You'll start to get used to what they look like. You'll start to see all of them more, especially with the major arcana cards. As you put them in order, you will have an increasing sense of the order that they go in, which says something. Which means,
so this is after the reading, but this is a step before you actually go through each pile, right?
Yes. Yeah, this is the step before I go through each pile.
Okay, and then to read this too with the reading in mind, is what you're
Right,
saying.
right.
Okay.
Then it tells you something with the reading in mind. So it's both an interesting thing to do in terms of getting used to looking at different groupings of cards also, and what they mean together, and in terms of, and then as you put them in order, you'll get more and more used to the order of the cards, and it's more like developing the relationship with the cards. Right. So that was what I wanted to be sure to talk to you about doing that. Right. So we have about 10 more minutes. Again, are there questions, or we can do something too where we sit and everybody picks a card, and picks a couple cards, and we can look at that. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a question just about if I'm doing a reading, just my daily card for myself, and it's a court card, is that always me?
Oh, that's a good question. One could argue that, yes, it's always you, even when it's somebody else, because it's also, what you see in somebody else. You can't see something in someone else unless it's there in you also, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You can't recognize, you recognize hunger because of your own hunger. So you recognize somebody acting in some way, whether it's good or bad, because you know that in yourself. So it's both. Sometimes you'll have a feeling that it's more about somebody else and understanding somebody else, or more about yourself.
Melissa, will you go into the court cards in more detail during the
Yes, I was trying to decide today whether I should talk more about the court cards or whether I should do this, but I decided to do this. But yes, so the court, I think I will talk about the court cards in more detail next time, and I'll also show, I'll take pictures and have versions of different court cards. But I'll do I can do a quick rundown of that right now too, like for you during the week. So the court cards are the people, and it is always very interesting if you have a reading that shows a lot of court cards. They do tend to show the people, the actual people around you. The court cards are sometimes, like in Rider-Waite, it's the page, knight, queen, and king. I think in one of my decks, I do like mother, no, do I do mother, father, or not? I think I do king. In all of them, I do king, queen, prince, princess. Sometimes, some decks do king, queen, lady, and knight. Some people do, sometimes it's mother, father, son, daughter, or girl, boy. In any event, you have a ruling male and a ruling female, and a younger male and a younger female. There are certain ways of reading cards where you always pick a court card to represent the querent first, and you do that on the basis of how they look. the darker that, you know, kind of going from dark to light, the pentacles or coins are the earth is going to be the darkest complexion or dark hair, towards the wands, which will be the lightest complexion or lightest hair. Swords would also be fairly light. Water is, I think that, yeah, but it's more, water is blue eyes at least. But you don't have to think about it like that. It's more, so again, this is like the people who represent the fire energy, the people who represent the water energy, the people who represent the air energy, and the people who represent the earth energy. So, and then roughly speaking, the king is always like the fire element of that element. So the king of wands is fire of fire. The queen is always the water element. So the queen of cups is water of water. The prince is always the air element. So the prince of swords is the air of air. And the princess is the earth element. So the princess of coins or pentacles is earth of earth. And the king of pentacles is fire of earth. And, you know, so, but that, that's like sort of, if that helps you, think about it. If it doesn't help you, don't get overly confused about it.
Melissa, sorry, is the princess the page?
Yes,
Okay.
the princess is the page. A lot of people started changing that because otherwise you had all male and one female, which seemed a little unbalanced, the page typically being male. But yeah, the princess or daughter would be viewed as the page. And I will go more through each of them. I think I did do videos on at least some of the court cards, I think in the, on YouTube. But they are, that you can also relate them to the astrological signs because, so the fire signs are, you know, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. The water signs are Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio. And the earth signs are Virgo, Taurus, and Capricorn. And the air signs are Gemini, Aquarius, and Libra. So the qualities that are associated with those astrological signs also then become associated with the people in those that are shown in those cards. Rather than start going through each of the suits, each of the court cards and the wands and each of the suits, or even each of the kings, queens, princes, and princesses, I think next time I'll do that. I'll give you more of that. But does that give you enough to start with? Yeah. And you should, so the deck that you have, like one of the things that is, you should get a feeling for the people that are shown in the deck. Like the court card should give you a feeling about different people in your life. They may not look exactly like those people specifically look, but you should get a sense of what that person is like, from a sense of a kind of person from the court card. Whether the person is like impulsive, or whether they seem like, whether they seem soothing or excited, you know what I mean? It's like those kinds of energies. Other questions? Okay. All right. Well, we're pretty much done, but is there anything else that anyone would like to do or to be covered before we end today's class?
I have one question.
Yeah.
When you were showing us just the last set, when you had the 3 or 4 across and then 1 up, why is it that arrangement? I didn't quite understand that between what you did for United States and the group.
Oh, okay.
What is that?
You're talking about the putting the cards in order arrangement.
Yeah.
That?
What does this represent and what's this used for?
Oh, this is just something that I do. This is not a reading that you'll find anywhere, but I do find it a good way, a good kind of informal way to do a reading. And the reason is that I'm putting the cards in order. So that's why up at the top are the major arcana. So I'm going through the deck, and the deck is completely out of order.
Okay.
And I'm just putting the cards in order.
In order.
Right. And I'm putting them in order according to suit, but I'm starting by dividing them into their suit. So first I have the major cards right here. So this is a good way to start to get used to your deck of cards.
Okay.
You'll start to put them, you'll start to recognize which ones are the major cards, and you'll see them more often. The more you see them, the more you have a sense. And also if one of them starts to like sort of calls out to you, if you see it and you think like, huh, that card, why does it look like that? You might look it up. It's a good way to start to interact with your cards. And so then there's the four suits, the wands, the cups, the swords, and the coins. And I put them, and I have them in the order from fire, water, air, earth.
Okay, got it. Oh, okay, got it. Thank you.
And then I go through each of the piles and put them in order.
Got it.
And I go 1 ace through 10, and then king, queen, prince, princess.
Okay.
So, Melissa, how often do you do that?
I actually do that pretty often because so lately, so I've had tarot cards since I was 8. When I started working as a psychic, I used tarot cards all the time, and then I designed my decks and I did it even more. And then at a certain point I stopped because I started feeling like the cards were not as accurate as just what I saw. Recently, I just published this deck, and as that happened, I was like, I should start using the cards more again. So I've been using the cards more lately, and not always, but pretty much after every reading. So every time I do a reading for someone, I am starting with a deck that has been put back in order.
And then can I ask you, so you start with a deck as in order, and then what method do you use to disorder them?
I put them on a flat surface, usually on the floor, since I'm usually sitting on the floor, and I mess them up. I just mess them up in a pile. I don't shuffle them like that because, I mean, for one thing, that will ruin your cards faster. And I just, while I'm talking to them, I just start like and messing them up. If I'm doing a reading for myself too, like I think that's a very sort of there's a very meditative quality to, like, as you sit, just kind of like moving the cards about. And you know, we didn't do like a grounding or focusing exercise now. That is really important to do, to get yourself in the right place before you pick a card. And the mixing the cards can be part of that.
And
Yeah, because when we did the class, I haven't done much with the cards yet, but when we did the class last week and I used my cards, my intuitive way was just to mess them all up like that. Yeah. That's what works for me. Then when I was reading in my little book about I have the they called that, well, I've got yours now, but I've got the animal spirit ones. Mm-hmm. She talks about, you know, cutting the deck and then putting it back. So I did that. And I didn't really like that so much. But then it's like, take the top card, and that didn't really, I don't know. But I did experience, I thought it was really interesting because I did decide to sort of do a reading, and I did it without, in exactly the way one doesn't want to. I was sort of like, I was a little bit frantic about something. And and there was a lot going on in the last few days.
There's a lot of that going around.
Right, I know. And I was like, hey, what's this? This is just like, no. And then, of course, actually, it was the perfect card because it did reflect what was going on. But then I then grounded myself, took a few moments. Then I really thought about, well, actually, what do I really want to know?
Right.
And then I asked the question I wanted to know. And of course, I picked a completely different card.
Right.
And that seemed like something that was much more appropriate because it gave me something. And then I realized that that first card mattered too.
Right.
But
That's
it mattered in a
exactly
kind
right.
of temporary way, because
Right.
that temporary way was really saying, yeah, that's where Miss Frantic was just a few minutes ago. It was
Right.
very accurate, and I didn't like it at all. But the next card wasn't about who you're going to become. No, it was just actually the question I asked was, what do I need now? You know, what is the, you know, it was, what have I forgotten about myself? What's the, you know, the part. So that I felt was like a great question, because then the card that came out was like, oh, okay, that's something to think about. You know, that's something that, so they, but then it became really interesting what the two cards were, because they were directly opposed.
Yeah, that both cards are important then. And then also then in your ongoing experience, when you find yourself experiencing something that is more like the first card, it also is a message as to what's happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and how grounded you are. All of us do reading sometimes when we're not like, you know, perfectly centered and all that. And sometimes you'll even get, I mean, the cards are not, the part of you that you're communicating with is not typically dogmatic. So sometimes then even you'll get something really kind and helpful. But generally speaking, you will get a reading that goes deeper and that is more helpful if you also, like, if you put yourself in a grounded place first. Because then you've already done some of the work. And also then you're approaching without need. Like the worst kind of reading, the worst kind of client to have is somebody who has an answer that they know they already want. That's like you're never gonna get the answer that if you're going to them thinking that you need something in particular, that is unlikely to be what you'll get. Not that that's necessarily completely out of the picture.
But I think what's really interesting is that this thing about coming to these cards not knowing their meanings,
right,
is really interesting. This beginning stage is really fascinating because you know, you pick the card and then, okay, the picture may have a very strong connect, you know, you may interpret it, but then you can go and read what it actually says, or read what you've said, or read what someone else has said, and you realize, gosh, there's a lot, you know. So in a way, when I look at the cards now, and when you put them all out, I'm like, well, I don't know what any of them mean yet. It doesn't mean anything. I'm just watching. But when I do a single card, as you said, you can begin to really learn, and you do come to it without having this pre-existing set of meaning that you're applying, because you don't have it yet.
Right. No, I think
it's sort of like a virgin. It's quite, you know, it's like a blank canvas in a way.
Right. No, it's very good. It's that's why I also had people just talk about like the best thing too is just what's the sense that you get from the reading overall when you first see it. Does it look happy, or does it, you know, what does it look like? That's a good place to start. And for that, you don't actually need to know any of the meanings. So that's, you know, obviously it's also helpful and nice and interesting and good to start to know the meaning, but some sense but the overall sense should tell you something as well, and that's part of the communication.
In that reading that you had of the United States, is there anything to do with, we were talking about the number 7s being a bit magical, and that there were 3 7s, and 3 to me is always very magical. Well, I think to many people is a magical quality to it, but of course then it has the triangle, you know, you have the triangle that gets formed from 3 equal numbers, whatever the numbers are. And I just wondered, does one ever take a reading beyond, I mean, they weren't, I don't know if they were actually making a triangle, but
they weren't making, because there's the 2 at the beginning and one over there.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, 4 7s in the deck. So it was, I think it's also sort of interesting which 7 is missing, which is the 7 of Cups. You know, I think anything that, the most interesting thing about doing readings is whatever comes things will start to come up for you that are above and beyond anything that you could read anywhere or learn anywhere or know. And when that stuff comes up, pay attention. Sometimes you'll have a feeling about like a grouping of cards about what it means or what it's saying that will not really have any direct relationship to anything any of the cards are supposed to mean exactly, but it will almost always, it will be right. So something occurs to you about that, pay attention.
Okay.
Can I ask
Well,
a
I've
quick-
only ever had my cards read once, so I have like no experience at all. It's all new.
Good place to start.
Sorry, Sharon, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. Just a question. I wouldn't personally lay my cards in a cross because that wouldn't work for me. What's another way that you prefer or you would use to lay the cards?
So there sometimes a circle is a good reading, and 10 cards is a good number of cards, and you could also have it be, this one in the center, or that one could be at the top, or that one could be to the side, and then the last card could be at the top. Oops, I'm pointing. So this one can be in the center, or it can be like at the 1 o'clock position, and the final card can be in the 12 o'clock position.
Okay.
A circle, I think, is another good layout. A line of a few cards too, or like, you could think of it as a tree form as well, is another good form. And this is called a Celtic cross, but you could think of it as a tree also rather than a cross. I never really saw the cross all that. That's what it's called. But I mean, here's a cross right here, but why there would be the cards running up the side, never really totally. I mean, I know what a Celtic cross looks like, but yeah, I would try doing a circle. And also I would actually, I think that this kind of the center with cards around, and you could, I mean, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Melissa, I have a couple of questions. So when you're doing a reading for somebody else, would you always be the one to draw the cards? Or if you both got into a meditative space, would you ever have them draw the cards?
And then you read? Have them always draw the cards.
Okay.
Nearly.
And then
sometimes.
And do it facing them or facing you? Like,
that's a good question. That's a good question. So first of all, also sometimes if like they were picking cards and their cards were giving them like sort of unhappy answers, which would suggest that maybe they're not completely grounded or something, then I might pick a card like, okay, let me help them out of this. What should I tell them? And then I always do it from the person's perspective. So you have them mix the cards and then I have them mix the cards in a pile and put them into a neat pile. And then they hand them to me. If the way that they've handed it, then if it's not clear which is the top or which is the bottom, I ask them which is the top and which is the bottom.
Okay.
All right. See you guys next week. And next week we'll deal with the court cards. If you have anything else that you like, or if you'd like to do, say, for example, more of I do want us to break into groups at a certain point so that that you can all have the experience of like sort of trying to read for each other. But if there's something that you would like more or less of in these classes, just send me an email.
Thanks, Melissa.
Let's do one final.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So lovely.
Yep. Next time.
Bye.
Bye.